In the last lesson, we took the time to organize the footage in our bin. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the approach we're going to use during the rough cutting process. Let's start by discussing two common approaches to creative editing. Different editors prefer to work in different ways. Some like to work linearly. This approach means that you'll start at the beginning of a scene and then you'll edit it straight through, all the way to the end. A key point here is that you'll refine the cut as you go, and you'll be completing a relatively polished edit during the process. Others prefer to block in their whole scene very quickly. They'll cut in the major moments first to help them figure out the general pacing. Then, they go back through and refine the cut later by filling in the rest of the picture and the connective tissue in between. I'm personally open to using both methods, depending on things like the type of scene, the deadline, and sometimes just my general mood. For this scene, we'll be using a bit of a combination. Overall, we're going to work pretty linearly so that we can make sure that the sequence of events in the fight flows from one to the next in the correct order. However, in the first rough cut pass, we're also going to be pretty quick and rough with our shot choices, and we're going to try to get all the major fight moments laid out in our sequence relatively fast. I'll be paying some attention to things like camera angles and match edits as we work roughly, but only as much as is needed to get the idea of the scene across. I should mention something here about the goal of the rough cutting stage. Believe it or not, it is not to end up with a well-edited, polished, exciting fight scene. Not yet, at least. That comes later. It's to create a basic editorial structure that we can build on. The sound, music, timing, and polishing will all come later. For now, the shots might jump around a little bit, the sound will be all production audio without any effects, and there won't be any music yet. Later in the course, we'll fine-tune our edits and our shot choices, and we'll add all the bells and whistles. For the time being, just consider this first step like a painter creating a rough sketch before they start painting their final masterpiece in oil. Another very important rule to keep in mind is this: the rule of clarity. The rule of clarity has three main components to it. First, and most importantly, do not confuse the viewer. Illogical shot progressions or edits that are too quick leave the viewer trying to play catch-up, and they emotionally disengage from the scene. A confused viewer is a disinterested viewer, and obviously that's bad. Two surefire ways to cut a bad action scene is to work with boring footage and to confuse your audience. I know for a fact that our footage isn't boring, so the only way that we can completely mess this up is by confusing the audience. So let's make sure that we don't do that. Now, second, you'll need to keep the actions purposeful. Every shot should logically flow from the one before it and lead into the one that follows. This is a pretty standard rule for all types of editing, but it's easy to lose track of it during the chaos of an action scene. Third, remember that every action has a reaction. If a character gets punched, we need to see him wince in pain, fall down, yell, or something. If this all happens from one shot in one camera angle, great, that's efficient. But, more often than not, you'll need to purposely cut to another angle to get the best combination of an attack plus a reaction. Also, if you have close-up coverage of your character's faces in a scene, use it. It'll help you to really clearly show the audience the character's physical and emotional reaction to an attack. So, there are two things that you'll need for the next lesson as we start the rough cut. First, you'll need a copy of the beat sheet that we made earlier. If you chose to take notes, make sure you have them nearby. Otherwise, print out a copy of the beat sheet file and use that as reference. Remember, since we don't have a script for this particular scene, the beat sheet's going to be our guide. And second, you're going to want to have close by for reference the master shot. I'm going to drop it into the end of my sequence so I have it available for easy reference whenever I want to refresh my memory on how the scene's supposed to flow. I chose the long camera angle instead of the extreme long camera angle so that I can see a little bit more which characters are actually doing what, because their faces and outfits are a little bit more clear. If you don't want to cut it into the end of your sequence, just keep it close by and know where you can reference it for easy access. Coming up, we're finally ready to start editing our fight scene. We'll be cutting together the key moments of the fight and building a rough structure. This is a really important stage of the editing process, so be prepared to do a bit of work, but also see a pretty huge chunk of progress being made by the time we're done. If you've been sitting down for a while watching these lessons, Now might be a good time to get up, stretch a little bit, maybe grab something to eat or drink. You'll want to be focused, alert, and well rested for the upcoming section. Alright, I'll see you in a bit.